This is very surreal for me to be sitting opposite you and having a conversation, because it's a time capsule. It's like I'm transported back to age 16, 17, 18, when I used to be an anchor. So this might actually become suddenly an interview where I'm asking you questions.
A very young anchor.
So my connect with you started obviously with God of Small Things, but also the fact that I met you. Well, I was in the audience at one point in Trivandrum when you had come for a Lit Fest. And I was so eager to ask you a question, and I wanted to sound smart, and I wanted to impress all of what a 17-year-old would do in front of her idol, it seemed. And I asked you that one question, which I have time and time again seen everybody ask you, and you've answered the same answer that you gave me that day is, how are you so brave? And I remember you gave me the answer, and I had no idea what to make of it, because I was 17 and I didn't understand the depth of what your answer was. But now, sitting at age 36,
when everybody's asking you that,
yeah, very true. I am I can actually grasp. At least I've started grasping the reality of what that answer is, and which is, it's nothing to do with bravery. It is not bravery. Whether you have hope in, as you've said, hope in changing things or no, that is pointless. You do the work. As a human, you show up. So I have to first thank you, because everything that I am, some total of many things, you have a big part to play in how I have just not stopped showing up. Mm-hmm. So that brings me to anger, the importance of anger. And I started out again, soon after I saw you at the Lit Fest, I started acting. And I remember just feeling and just embodying more and more rage and boundaries being crossed, exploitation happening. And all you do is you're just imploding, waiting to implode. Didn't know what to do with all the anger. I wanted to start with that. How has anger transmuted through the years for you?
I think that's for everybody. It's different and it's complicated. It has a lot to do with what kind of person you are, perhaps what kind of childhood you've had, whether, you have had the space or the opportunity or absolutely no space to explode, Yeah. But I think in my case, a lot of the time, I'm not the kind of person who just, loses my temper or something, but the anger is what informs almost everything that I do and write. But in a way, how do you turn that into art? How do you mold it into a space where it's not just something that is destructive, but something that is actually a kind of art or a kind of cinema or a kind of literature. Sometimes my anger just comes out in humor. Okay. A lot of the time it comes out in humor. Yeah. But right, I do think that I sometimes feel vaguely offended now when people ask me about this brave thing, because I feel like I think it was in Shakespeare, in Julius Caesar, that Mark Antony said, "So is my horse," because that's not the building blocks of what I am or want to be. I think what I do, and perhaps what you're doing now with this whole Hema Committee thing, is really fundamentally to me about making space around myself for just all of us to be able to work, to have more space, to be free, because unless you are free, you can't experiment, you can't think, you can't fail, you just keep producing the same damn thing over and over again. So it's not so much about being brave as about wanting to breathe, open the windows, come on, let's just open them.
It's anger and indifference, though. I keep seeing it shifting from everyone getting offended with what's happening, enraged, and then there is a lot of protest and conversation, debates, and then it simmers down, and then the cycle just keeps repeating without much change happening. But so then when there's a work of art that continues the conversation, makes people uncomfortable, but at the same time they keep coming back to the same artist, let's say, or be it whatever medium. That I think is an amazing power to have built over a period of time, which again, I think in one of your interviews, again, the question was that you're everyone's favorite writer, and the relationship with you as a critique is something that everybody, they're uncomfortable, obviously, and one must not seek comfort when we are trying to grow. Has it ever been a challenge or at all in trying to put your work out there? Like in terms of the space you were planning to create, like you just said, the right to fail.
Yeah.
Has it been a challenge?
I don't think, I think one of the things that really bothers me these days is that with this increased freedom that people have, even women, young women, actors, whatever, there's also a sucking away of a certain kind of oxygen, because everything is becoming like, how many followers do you have, or how successful are you? And there is so much that I have done. For example, when I finished, when The God of Small Things was published and whatever, won the Booker, and it had every kind of comment going on, but my first reaction was to step back, because I was so frightened of this. It's a kind of fame can be a kind of humiliation, actually. Like, it can be, now everyone wants to see you perform the same thing, the son of the God of Small Things and the God of Small Things 2, and you can't experiment, you can't change. And I felt so trapped, and then when I started writing the political essays, it was almost the opposite impetus. It was almost to be unpopular. It was almost to say, fuck you, So, and that was, so it wasn't like you were searching for sort of followers, or you were swimming with the current, or you were giving people what they wanted to hear. Quite the opposite, like, I remember there were just a few months between when I won the Booker and I was on the cover of every magazine, and suddenly the BJP came and there was the nuclear test, and everybody more or less, if I didn't say something, it would have been taken that I was, complicit, or that I was happy about it. And so I started, I got kicked off the pedestal in a minute, and I was pretty relieved about that. So, I feel that I just actually was happy to meet you, because I have read the Hema Committee report, and I really felt so sad when I read it, not just because of the sexual harassment and all that, which is what everybody talks about, but the whole ethos of what's going on in that industry. It was so sordid and so small-minded, and these are supposed to be the artists and the people who are at the cutting edge of what's going on, and instead all the rhetoric of progressive Kerala and workers' rights and women and leftism, everything is just ground down to some filthy, sordid little paste. Absolutely. And then I think, what is the art that's going to come out of that? Forgetting about, saying, forget about the fact that they don't want to sign contracts, they want to sexual favors from women, and the way they're treating people who are less important than themselves. The fact that even up to now, I see that everyone is skirting around it. Everyone says there are a few people who control it, but nobody will name names. And it's so sad that there is so much terror in that beautiful place.
Exactly.
It's so sad, and it's so sordid is the word that comes to mind. And
thank you for giving me that word. I was trying to.
I wonder what you think. If these are the kind of values, and this is the kind of control that these few people have, what does I mean, we know legally and criminally and all that, but what does it do to art? I mean, what does it do to the films that are being made, the scripts that are being written, the roles that are being given? What would you say?
I think it had gotten stale in its foundation so long ago, even before I started acting. But there was this performative nature to everything. They'd say things like, "Oh, we are a family," and that's just the beginning. That's the tip of the iceberg. To the extent that about 17 years later, when someone says that to me, I can say, "No, I have a family. You're my colleague. Let me now get to the basics and let's do some definitions." Because that has been used as a weapon to exploit over and over and over again. So the fact that for 17 years, I had normalized this too. And the process they applied is to make sure women never share notes. So we were all, by structure, we were made to be floating islands. We would never meet. Like, I would have dubbing in the morning. I'll have another female actor in the film, but they'd keep it in the evening. So we will not even have crossed path. There was no avenue where we would be sitting together and discussing art. Associations will have grand events where we'll be told what to wear, how to wear it, come, all for the benefit of everyone looking very Malayali and good girls.
Yeah.
And I never started thinking about it until I saw even basic sanitation was not provided.
Yeah.
And when that became a problem and I spoke about it, some of the men started backing it because they're much older and they had prostate issues. So now they also want in on this. So some girl has started a petition, let's just go and we'll also get bathroom. Not for the equality part, not for sanitation, not for basic needs, because they just needed somebody to start it. Then it was an unraveling which happened over the years, where I realized even I had normalized the fact that there are a bunch of people you need to continue to please, and you have to tone police yourself. Even when you're asking for a contract, you have to speak in your half voice so that they still like you. So the unlearning of people pleasing that was sort of injected into us also took its own time. But it came with the decision that it's okay to lose work. It's okay to leave this industry and go. The moment I decided that, I was like, now it's time. Now I can get to work. But not everyone's afforded that privilege. So then you also, because of the recent, lot of women have started coming out and the collective was formed, Women in Cinema Collective.
Yeah.
Also throws light on what privilege has done. What the intersectionality of feminism was lost on me and many others. And so it was calling them out, calling ourselves out for the longest period. But I do feel it is very sad, and sordid is the best word. I'm going to use it because I will feel, what is this feeling? I didn't have the word. But I also feel now no one can go back to, they can't put a facade back on. They can't fool people. The public know too much. There's too much of expose that has happened. What will come of the art is what I hope it will be very confusing for a while. Because clarity is what we seek. But unless and until we continue to make art.
But are there younger people, I mean, younger men and women who, I mean, now I know that you're talking about a set of old men who pretend to be young, who are controlling everything and acting in everything, and obviously their currency is the popular love and whatever.
Adulation.
So the adulation, but isn't there a younger generation of men? I hope there is in Kerala who are actually more egalitarian and actually see that you can create so much more if you have women thinking with you, and not just women, but I'm talking about everybody on the spectrum, thinking with you. It's so much more exciting. There's so much more oxygen. Does that exist, or are the younger generation the same?
They're not the same. It's a little worse. I feel like the older generation are more committed to misogyny and patriarchy. The laziness of the younger generation is what bothers me. They're the fence sitters whose conscience needs to be pricked and skinned, is what I feel. because they can see now very clearly. And there are also people whom I can see, even just in the society in general, but also in the industry, who are a little pissed off that they are not getting the benefits that their previous generation got.
But I mean, one thing I liked about the campaign that you all ran, and which ended up with this committee report, which was obviously suppressed and is still redacted. But because, you know, when the Me Too movement happened, and generally this whole woke thing, there was something very very vengeful, and, you know, the whole thing about it all should turn legal and criminal, and there was something very unforgiving. There was, you know, instead of opening windows, it was closing, it was pointing, it was, you know, blaming, which all these things do need to be done. But at the end of the day, the point is, how do you change things? How do you move forward together? Because nobody can do anything on their own, you know?
Absolutely.
So I thought that was very enlightened, that in Kerala, you were really looking for a change of culture, a change of climate, not just some criminal action. Although obviously people who have committed crimes against women and others ought to be tried, of course, but that's not going to solve the problem. You know, the problem is a change in how we look at each other. You know,
it's the boring work, the data work, the policy work, the stuff that I, as an actor, never thought I'd have to take up with a Google sheet and like other academic papers from China and from Korea, from UK. There are women reaching out now who are sharing their notes, which is beautiful right now. They can see news that's happening here. They're saying, this is the system we put in place. Do you think we can maybe help you put something like that together? So while that's happening, I feel art needs to be created.
But you know, that's what I was just going to say, that ultimately the only real cure for this is other power centers, other art, you know, us creating our own thing, you know, which is, of course, I mean, for whatever reason, I have never worked inside of a industry or something. I would be this kind of outlier, you know, so I just do whatever the hell I want.
I'm pretty jealous, and I admire that, but
it's fine. It's not, I'm just saying that, but so the battles that you have to fight are different. You know, of course, mine are the same, as in I'm taking on the big world and the big institution, but you know, from a position that is not, I mean, it was a lucky escape for me. But I really want to see, especially in Kerala, because, you know, I have some irrational pride about that place. So that's why I was so sad to read that report. You know, really so sad, because you know, it's like your dirty little secret. Because you know, I always, when I was young, growing up there, I had this stupid sense that, okay, if your woman is financially independent, that's 3/4 of your way victory in the battle. But then I see in Kerala, for some reason, women joined the workforce so much earlier than everywhere else. Women were educated so much earlier than everybody else, and yet they are so much less free than in other societies where women are considered to be oppressed, you know. And they are so mentally, I mean, it's not just the men, as you know, there were women in this report who were who didn't understand what you were talking about, and women who have internalized their own oppression to a point where they can't even comprehend what's going on, and they contribute to it in ways. So you can't really divide things as to
men and
wonderful women and bad men. Of course not, you know. So, but yeah, it was very, very sad for me to read that.
Yeah, it stings. But also, I whenever I'm asked, like, I go to Bombay or other places, like, a lot of problems there, and I'm like, actually, at least where there's noise, there's hope for change. the other industries where it's all happening, but everyone's keeping very quiet, that scares me more.
No, I mean, everybody knows what goes on in Bombay. I mean, it's vile.
Yes.
You know?
But it's not talked about, and nobody's putting in a committee to study, nothing. And all of this had to come from the advocacy push that the collective had to keep nagging, be the buzzing voice that you can't find the switch. We're hoping to just be that. Like maybe not more.
But I really want to just say that you know, the people who are dissenters or the people who are not going to agree to participate and bow down to this, they have to create their own work and their own beautiful work and their own work that has as much power as the you know, as the mafia lords. Yeah.
That's and you can see clearly when these movements are happening, there are films that are made for big budgets that are extremely on the, you know, men's rights activism, as they call it now. They're like, we are here to bring back the good old age of saying what an alpha male is and what a woman is supposed to be and all of that. So recently watched a movie like that, and I was like, suddenly the calm, the clarity is that, okay, I see what you're doing. Now I have to, I see yours and I'm going to raise you this. So, because the notion that we had to still go and find work with them was actually, it was ingrained in us. But now that slowly, I feel like it's just peeling an onion. It keeps coming out a newer, and when it comes out, it's like, oh, this is just common sense. You should have just known this. But what you said about Kerala is so true. I mean, I know so many women who have the financial freedom, but they've also now not known what to do with the money. So they give back because there's a guilt, a generational guilt of having freedom that I have witnessed. I personally have been lucky to also have left home pretty early. So being alone and like living alone, all of that empowered me to a different degree. But I see why that's happening with women especially, where they don't know what their purpose is, so to speak.
It's very interesting. I don't know what the answer to it is. It's mysterious to me that, you know, once you've got financial independence, why would you not grab every other kind of independence, you know? And it's something that I think it's peculiar to Kerala that even given the left movement and everything, it still didn't happen, and it still hasn't happened. You know,
you see that even in the left government.
Yes, of course. I mean, they were so worried about releasing this report, and you know, kept it down, and anyway, that was it's sad.
So that makes me like, because it's all about also now the artillery, the room that we have to now build. I was wondering the hate. You mentioned something about this being the battle between lovers and haters. I love that, you know, lovers are on the street and haters are on the street. The haters are armed to the teeth, you said. But I'm like, what can we arm the lovers with? I feel our lovers...
Art. Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that ultimately, in the larger sense of what's going on, you know, you can't find real art, real intellect, real humor, or anything really wonderful amongst the haters, because they are so busy with their weapons and their lynchings and their small narrow minds, you know. So I feel that, you know, we just don't know how to use what we have, because we are those who tell the beautiful stories, who do the beautiful work, you know, and I feel that it needs to be almost weaponized now.
Weaponized,
you know? But that I don't mean making messagey things and placards and manifestos, but you know, it's. But that's why I keep coming back to the fact that when that whole arena is so sordid, what kind of, and when you know that, you know, literature, cinema, music, this is what actually creates the values in society, then how are those values going to be if it's generated from this solid foundation? You know? It's such a strange thought.
It also feels like the entire foundation needs to be plowed out, completely irrigated, dug out.
Yeah.
But for that, we have to do it together, like you said.
Yeah.
There's no othering of even the perpetrators at this point.
Yeah.
The prevention and prohibition can only come there. The punishment can take its course. But the prevention, unfortunately now, they're only responding to fear.
But there are no actual conversations happening. I mean, even in private, with like, is there no?
Not with the younger lot of male actors, producers, directors. Very few. I think one or two. We can just count in one hand. Is who would actually come out and said, okay, what the collective has been doing, what the report, the government has to do this, that, and the other. The rest of them have been very quiet. And even the ones who do speak, there is very evident that there is a lot of currency in being woke. So they are, loading up on that.
But is there any possibility of a separate group or little cultural rebels, sort of making films which are addressing these things? And
that is coming, but I feel like the consistency with which the haters are making films, with the funding that they are getting, is pretty. It's intimidating. Yeah. So the lovers need funding I feel like, and the lovers are very smart enough. I feel like we could take a leaf out of
funding, because one of the things I really admire about Malayalam cinema compared to other films, other film industries, is how they manage to do these really quick, low budget films which are so cool. So
yes, but that also means we can maybe make 10 films at the price of one film that's made in Bombay.
Yeah.
And if the lovers get together to make 10 films with that messaging, but obviously good art, like from their heart, the way they want to make it, personalized to their individual point of view, that needs to I think the math needs to that's what we need to fix a little bit, please. We have to talk about in which Annie gives it those ones.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, the title, the part, the humor comes in as well to grab you by the throat, and now you can't look away. How was your experience writing and then also making the film, and then the sort of decision, I want to say, to not make films after?
Well, actually, Annie, we made before I wrote Annie, we had worked on a 26-part television series called the Bargad, which means the banyan tree, which was set in the freedom movement, and we had shot a huge amount, and then the production company collapsed, and it was like the biggest nightmare you can possibly have, in everything, our sets, our costumes, our everything, just years of work, just fell on us. And then Doordarshan was just at that time opening, and the head of Doordarshan was commissioning these films. So I just sort of proposed it almost as a joke. I was pretty sure they'd just never agree, because I wanted to try writing this language that we used to speak in Delhi University, in the School of Architecture, this sort of mix of Hindi and English, and it was really me beginning to try out my little writing muscles. I didn't want to do anything profound or serious. I just wanted to practice the craft, more or less, So we got a tiny budget. It must have been enough for 1/10 of the title sequence of a normal film. It was really nothing, but it was so much fun to make. I mean, I designed it and acted in it, of course, and all that. And after that, and it won. I think it won the best screenplay, and then my favorite national award. Yes. 2 national awards. One was the best screenplay, but one was my favorite award of all time, which is called Best Film in Languages Other Than Those Specified in Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution.
This was
like a very wonderful thing. After that, after that, I wrote and we made another film called Electric Moon, which was funded by Channel 4.
Okay.
But yeah, after that, I sort of decided that I didn't want to work in film, because my falling into film was accidental. It wasn't as though this was some dream that I had or anything. It was just literally like a movie in itself. I was, a runaway from home, and I used to go every day to office on this cycle, and I met Pradeep because his wife used to work in the same office, and he saw me and literally like, will you act in my movie? And I was like, no, I don't. Anyway, it was just something that happened. But essentially, I'm a loner, I not because can you imagine me surviving in the Malayalam film industry for about 16 seconds maybe before I pulled off someone's dhoti or something, mundu.
Absolutely.
I couldn't have done it.
No, I didn't wish it upon you. I love that you have your solitude.
So I'm a loner, and I just both. I mean, after I did Electric Moon and so on, it was because it was funded by Channel 4. So even the script fee, just paid in pounds, was enough to give me a little time to write The God of Small Things. And so it was. I just couldn't function as a person who worked. It's beautiful to work together, but I just not built that way.
I remember telling my parents, what do you want to do? And then I said, I'll go study creative writing. This is before I decided acting was going to be the profession I'll pursue. And what is the reason? It's like, no, I just want to be alone and to be able to find a job where I can do things alone, maximum amount of the time. Of course, that never really materialized, at least not yet. So
it's not. I mean, I've just been extremely lucky,
So you've also made very, very good use of it. There is a particular debate that has gone on, and I know this has been asked to you before, but in the context of the Hema Committee report and everything, I wanted to pick your brain on the art versus artist debate, which has gone on. And generally, for me, it is when somebody watches my film and they don't like it. They tell me, I don't feel anything. I'm like, it's your right to not like it. You're consuming it, so you have a relationship with the art, so I understand. I don't get hurt or anything because I'm like, I have my relationship with the art too. That nobody can strip away. I gave it my all, and that's mine in a different way. But that art versus artist, I understand. But what about when there's a criminal in place? Like, for example, a Roman Polanski who has been accused of being a pedophile, and the case is going on, and then he's still being celebrated and honored with several awards at every event, which is causing many women to walk away, and from the industry itself, the attrition rates are very high. So where would that fit in that sense?
It's a very, very, very vexed subject. I mean, now I think you must have, I don't know if you read about this wonderful writer called Alice Munro and what happened with her daughter and the fact that she knew that her husband was molesting her daughter and she didn't really support her daughter. It's very hard, to say. I just feel like we ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You can't, every work of art cannot be loaded with a kind of purity and morality of the creator. Like everyone in history, I mean, we wouldn't be reading anything if we were using these standards now. We wouldn't be reading anything. I mean, you wouldn't, by woke standards. I mean, I'm just leaving criminality aside, but even, I mean, can Tolstoy write Anna Karenina? He's not a woman. Can Dostoevsky do what he did?
That's very, I feel, that's definitely.
So I think, I just think that we should be uncomfortable, we should be outraged, and we should be able to assess a work of art from a position of discomfort, even, because art is not meant to be a bloody Bible. I mean, like a lot of evil people make beautiful art also. So I think we have to just be a little complicated and be able to to be morally outraged by what somebody did, but separate, because even when you create something, like if I write a book, ultimately I don't own that book when it's in the world, you know, because you may receive it differently from how I thought I wrote it. Which doesn't mean you hate it, but you love it in a different way, or you understand it. Sometimes we are not, I mean, there is an alchemy involved in creating art, you know. Sometimes, like I remember my publishers or my literary agency call me and say, how's it going? I say, you know, I don't write, I just wait. You know, so sometimes it's like that. You're not, I think we should not be looking at the world with minds like guillotines, you know?
Right. But then not to make it too prescriptive, not to make it too like by the rule, by the book. Would the criminality aspect of it just be a different set of eyes maybe to look at?
I think that, you know, we should be intelligent enough to also understand how that informs the art, you know, like Polanski is a good example. I mean, so edgy and weird, those films of his, you know, and you don't have to forgive the man. You don't have to say, oh, you should be allowed to rape young people or something. You don't have to, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't see his films, I don't think.
So that's because this debate has been consuming all of us, because also another cultural thing now, the cancel culture as they call it, like something comes out and they are completely taken out of the equation. There is no conversation, there's no discussion, there's no time to even redeem oneself.
I think that you know, that came as a reaction, like it was not a revolution, it was an explosion, you know? But when things settle down, it is exactly like what we were talking about, that people have to change, you know, and people have to be given the opportunity to change, and culture has to change, and we all have to do our work and be complicated, and we have to decide when we want to forgive and when we don't, and all those things.
Stay complicated. The discomfort of being complicated and not to sort it out into different boxes immediately as it comes is, I think it's an epidemic. I feel like we all have obviously personally battled with it, but I think the more social media and a lot of eyes are on you all the time, even when you're sitting alone, you feel like you're sitting in a room with 200 people, is the kind of noise that's taking away a lot of this perspective, I feel. Because
I think it's a very, you know, and at least, I mean, coming away from the field of literature and art and things, but even just in political understanding, you know, I think only people who have some amount of privilege are those who want to make everything into little boxes, and they want to separate everybody. Whereas people who are really fighting on the ground, they want solidarity. They are not looking for purity. They are looking for solidarity. They're looking for understanding. They're looking for help. They're looking for money. You know, I mean, you're never going to get a perfect set of people supporting a perfect set of people, you know?
Wow, that's probably exactly what I needed to, and no, that's a cog that was missing, because I couldn't marry the two. That's something, every time a question comes, it's easy for me to say, no, you know what, I'm not going to watch the film, I'm not going to support this. But the perspective of, in ground reality, what do people need to get by, is to put in a system, and for that you may have to work together. And then your discomfort cannot be informed by your privilege, and you take care of it by
all of us are imperfect, you know, all of us are searching for something, and I don't think being unforgiving and judgmental and, you know, corny almost to that extent helps anything, you know.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I feel like there's a bit of education here in this as well, because there is a stringent, you gotta go by a certain, if you are trying to make difference, if you're dissenting, then there is a nature to the dissenter that is also sort of prescribed. And one can't go back and forth and try to mess up even and be confused. Like to have the liberty to fail and be confused is not really afforded, especially when the stakes are high, it seems. So
I'm not with that caravan that wants to be completely judgmental and cut people off and cancel people and all that. I think that it's very important to be political, to understand the history of why this person is speaking in this particular way, to be able to take it apart, to analyze it, to have conversations, to be intelligent. But this allows a certain dumbness, which I don't appreciate.
I understand. It was lovely talking to you.
Thanks, Parvathy. Lovely talking to you too.
Thank you.
And good luck in the industry to which I don't belong, fortunately.
Fortunately, we need you outside of the industry to continue taking inspiration from. But like I said when I started saying, a lot of me that is still being discovered by me has come from watching you. So thank you.
Be careful though. I'm not a good leader.
Don't want to be, I don't want to be good. And that's another thing I wanted to just say.
I may make you lose your way.
I love that. I think finding your way has been overrated, and being good has been overrated. And also the fact that if you just pluck away the word leader, it's so much more easy to breathe.
Yeah.
And that I've also heard you say. So I wouldn't ever attribute that onto you and like it feels like a weight, but in just witnessing you exist as you choose to exist gives me a lot of
I hope that happens to you too.
Thank you so much. Is that a cut?